to the dollar through a single secondary market intervention sales for the week ended August 11th, and also sold 50 million for small and medium scale enterprises with additional 45 million for retail invisible transactions. And the equities market closed on a bearish note, resulting to a 0.65% loss, leaving all share index at 37,950.96 basis point and market capitalization at over 13 billion naira. Let's now bring you a graphic summary of all the latest closing figures. China, the world's second largest economy, faces some headwinds this year as the effects of deleveraging and industrial capacity cuts kick in. And those factors are beginning to show up in the hard data. There are indications that with cooling property markets and uncertainty in the trade outlook, policymakers may refrain from tightening too aggressively to keep growth humming, especially with the political transition entailed in the 19th Party Congress looming. Chief China economist at Standard Chartered PLC Ding Shuang in Hong Kong said all three indicators falling from strong June readings is an initial signal of economic slowdown in the second half. That's business news. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly. See you again.
Thank you very much, Khalid Mohammed, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Next, of course, we'll be taking a look at the front pages of today's newspapers.
Our newspaper reviewer Bayo Atoyebi is already here in the studio with us. Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Kinsley. And good morning, Nigeria.
Bayo, pleasure to have you with us on the review segment today.
My pleasure,
thank
too.
you. Of course, we have a number of stories on the front pages of the papers that we have. Leading for the Nigerian Tribune, as well as the Daily Trust, the stories on the ASUU strike. Let's begin with the Nigerian Tribune. The story says with the headline, students worried as ASUU begins indefinite strike. Beg federal government and ASUU to resolve problem. Federal government owing us 825 billion naira. That's according to ASUU. Details of the story can be found on page 6. Now for the Daily Trust newspaper, the lead is also the same. It says universities grounded as ASUU embarks on strike. That's the lead story. Of course, you have other stories on the front pages of the two papers. Let's just go very quickly back to the Daily Trust. And you see the other headlines above the lead, but below the nameplate says how Jonathan ruled Nigeria. That's according to the presidency. There's a spat going on, of course, between the two administrations, past and incumbent. And then you have another one there. Dangote and Niger signed $450 million pact on rice and sugar today. That's on page 19. And then also on the front page there, you have a story with a headline, Edo Speaker sacked for co-opting wife as member. Edo Speaker sacked for co-opting wife as member. That's on page 34. And electricity grid continues to fluctuate despite 701 billion naira gas bailout. That's that. And then, of course, a photograph of the protesting workers at Jos University Teaching Hospital.
All right, here, let's go back to the New Telegraph this morning. Above the nameplate, to have a federal government approves 39 billion naira loan for discos to supply meters. Now, with the rider, power generation hits 6,700 megawatts. And Fashola says no monopoly on metering. Page 5 has details of that report on New Telegraph. And below the nameplate, we have some headlines here. 7 policemen arrested for robbery, extortion, and defilement. That's on page 9. Then couple cuts daughter's finger for ritual. That's on page 9 of New Telegraph. And then Dangote molds 450 million investment in Niger State agricultural sector. Kinsley also read that story on the Daily Trust. And then we have Imo building collapse. Core member dies after surgery. That's on page 9 of New Telegraph. And then the main headline, Buhari Jonathan at war over economy and then corruption. With the writer, President, you should be ashamed of your government. Of course, GEJ, who stands for exactly, good luck everybody. Jonathan says corruption was under your watch. That's on page 3. And now there's a photograph below that where hospital gardeners, cleaners on strike over 11 months salaries. And then below that also we have ASUU grounds universities declares strike, demands 825 billion naira allowances. NLC backs lecturers. NANS issues ultimatum, threatens to shut down Nigeria. That's on page 2 of New Telegraph. But you may have to come in here, especially on the issue of the ASUU and other striking stories at this moment.
Yes, there are several dimensions to that. The ASUU president, Dr. Biodun Oguyemi, says that the strike is comprehensive, total, and indefinite. Comprehensive in the sense that no teaching, no examinations, no attendance of any meeting. Total means it will involve all ASUU formations around the country. And indefinite simply invokes that there is no end to it. However, already some universities that already started their examinations were favorable to allowing their students to continue. Other members of ASUU are mobilizing to stop that from going on. There have been reactions to the strike. The National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS, have pleaded with ASUU to seek alternative means to resolve this lingering dispute. And the national PRO of the National Association of Nigerian Students, Okera for Bestman, says that they plan to engage the parties in this dispute. The National Parent Teacher Association also says they are surprised and they are shocked because their children will be thrown back to their homes for a long time, indefinitely. And you recall that as far back as 2009, the strike took 4 months. In 2010, it took 5 months. And in 2013, the strike took 6 months. This time, we don't know how long it will take. You also recall that in the past, because of this lingering problem, which has accumulated to about 825 billion, which they are non-demanding.
I was going to ask you, how justifiable is this amount of money being quoted here, or is it because it has accumulated for a very long time?
Several things are involved. One of the things they are demanding is non-payment of salaries and allowances over the years, and also they want implementation of 2014 pension as it relates to retired professors. And the other one, which is very controversial, is the restoration of funding for staff schools, which the universities created within their own environment. So that has been a contention between government. You created a school, you cannot ask me, federal government, to fund it. It is your school, it is your institution, you should fund it with your internally generated revenue. So that has been part of the, but the long and short of it is that the federal government is also worried because as far back as January, they set up a 11-man committee headed by Dr. Babalakim. And that committee is still working and has not come out with a committee recommendation about how they should go about it. There was a memorandum of understanding signed between ASUU and the federal government because this current problem was inherited by this current administration.
Well, that's, ultimately they'll have to deal with adequate funding for tertiary institutions.
825 billion.
And whether or not the current fees regime, will suffice, particularly for federal universities. It's because the fees that are being charged, whether for tuition or otherwise, the fees are simply ridiculous.
And Nigerians are also worried, about the fact that given the situation, economic situation in the country at the moment, asking for such an amount of money, out of government pulse would be something very, to be Herculean, for governments to handle.
Absolutely, that's 0.8 trillion naira.
Yes.
What is the size of your budget for 2017?
4.7
All
billion.
right, so that's these are the issues. Some of the matters, of course, will have to be resolved going forward. And then, of course, we also have to, if it calls for, I'm sure these are issues that experts will worry about going forward. They have to worry also about the quality of the faculty members.
Yes.
Yes, so you're demanding all of this, fine. These are accumulated debts, but you will have to worry. And then whether indeed you put in the required number of hours and the quality of service that you are required to put in. In the past, if you recall, the strike that ASUU went on had to do with provision of infrastructure, provision of libraries, provision of publication.
Academic facilities.
Academic facilities. TED Fund has provided, substantially a number of instances. They've tried to meet the infrastructure gap. They've also tried to meet all the issues with regard to training, research funding, and so on and so forth. So these are matters, of course, as I said, they will have to resolve.
So
and there is also the alarm that state governments, too, are continuing to establish universities. And they will turn around later on to ask the federal government to come and take it over.
Well, if not take it over, sometimes, you also have state-owned universities and federal universities bunching up under ASUU to go on strike. You say what applies to federal,
applies to the state.
So who has the responsibility for all of this? Kyria, let's take other headlines. Let's return to the Nigerian Tribune. Nigerian Tribune, below the nameplates, the following headlines. We have prevented spread of Lassa fever. That's according to the Ogun State government, page 36, in greater detail. And federal government gives states go ahead to produce power and okays 39 billion naira loan for discourse on prepaid meters. How to get Nigeria out of recession, according to an expert. And then, again, of course, you also have on the front page there the story about the Edo House of Assembly. It says Edo Assembly gets 4th speaker in 2 years. Of course, the video clip that went viral yesterday showed the typically, chaotic scene when they want to effect a change of leadership, tossing furniture about and then, of course, engaging in fisticuffs. Dangote to invest $450 million on agriculture in Niger. Is it Niger or Niger?
Niger.
Niger. That's because Niger is above Nigeria. That's the country. And then Niger, of course, is close to us here in the Federal Capital Territory. And then the story on the spat between the presidency and former President Goodluck Jonathan, also there on the front page.
All right, to Leadership newspaper now. So that after this, Bayo can now do a comprehensive analysis of some of the headlines we have this morning. Now, Leadership newspaper, below the nameplate, Dangote to boost agricultural business in Niger State. We've read that in so many of the headlines this morning. And now the main headline. Very important, merge Senate, House of Reps to save cost. Lawyers say that. That's on page 6. And writers say bicameral legislature wasteful for Nigeria. Lawmakers still using constituency projects as conduit pipe, says Obasanjo. And then we won't take issues with him, says the Senate. And then he is the principal mastermind of corruption. House of Reps. This is really heating up. And just besides the photograph on Leadership, we have ASUU embarks on definite strike. We have that in all of the newspapers this morning. Bayo, the merged Senate and House of Reps. How did that
is a proposal by a barrage of silks, senior advocates of Nigeria, and they have evaluated and said that the cost of running a bicameral legislature at the federal level is humongous, and therefore not only are they advocating for a unicameral system, that is either the Senate or the House of Rep, one of them should go, but they are also advocating for part-time legislature because we can't afford to continue to pay full-time legislature. But coming to the development in the Edo State House of Assembly, the incumbent speaker suspended some persons, and the persons subsequently also impeached him with 16 of the 24 members. By the time this impeachment was over, 3 others had joined, making them 19 that supported the impeachment. But the worrying thing is that this is the 4th speaker in this 6th Assembly of Edo State. And the dangerous development is that chairs were flying and fists were flying before that took place. The positive development, though, is in Niger State, where yesterday at a Niger State Investment Summit, agriculture came into the fore. Nigerians have been urged that we focus on agriculture to sustain the nation. And 3 prominent Nigerians, the acting president, says specifically that if Nigeria is to become, to attain sustainable growth, we must emphasize agriculture. former President Olusegun Obasanjo also advocated that interest rate had to be brought down so that people who want to take agriculture as a business can have it sustained. And former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, also lended his voice. But the danger here is this. Niger State has the wherewithal. If you go to Badiji area, there is ample land for agriculture. In fact, I recall that the first executive governor of Niger State, Engineer Kure, who is late now, boasted that Niger State was capable of feeding the whole Nigeria, and he was going to work with China to develop rice cultivation particularly. Seventh governor, who later on succeeded him, also came with the same thing, and nothing happened. We hope that this time it will grow from the rhetoric level to the practical aspect of it, so that we can continue to boost our. We have the facilities, we have the resources, and we have the land.
All right,
I think part of the problem about this agricultural development or taking agriculture as business is the fact that we have not developed a local technology. Because the Korean man you talked about, who said he was going to work with China, is because of the technical aspect of agriculture. Because you can't just import every other thing you need to mechanize agriculture and think you can get out of it.
No, contrary to that, our agricultural research institutes have founded local equipment that will enable our agriculture grow from the subsistence level to at least semi-mechanized level. But these things have not been implemented.
All right,
those are the challenges.
Yeah, Baya, just one little comment I want to make on that. Yes. Where are other investors? It's one name you keep hearing, one name you keep hearing.
Yes.
Going forward, somebody's going to say, oh, this gentleman has bought over the entire country. Where are the other investors? There are opportunities now. Take up those investments. All right, let's go to the front page of Punch newspaper and then take a few headlines from the Punch. You can see the lead story, of course, is one that we have already discussed. Then there's an earpiece there beside the nameplate. It says, constituency project is corruption, says Obasanjo. Obasanjo is former head of state. Now, above the name flag, you have other headlines. Sultan Abubakar kicks against restructuring. And then investors get federal government's nod to meter electricity consumers. Now let's just go below the photograph. For the photographs you see there, these are the photographs from the Edo House of Assembly yesterday. This is not a motor park or what they call a garage. And these are not, by the way, as they will say, Agberos. These are honorable, otherwise honorable lawmakers who have descended into, as Fela would say, ruffle. Now, you see 6 photographs there taken from the Edo House of Assembly yesterday. Free for all, as Edo Assembly impeaches Speaker. I think that something also has to be done with regard to the interpretation of Parliamentary Privileges Act, because I'm just wondering, some of the funny pieces of items of furniture they threw yesterday probably got damaged.
Yes.
Who's going to fix it? You know, who bears the cost? Now, of course, you have, as I said, other headlines there. Ozobulu youths protest church reopening week after killings. And then Nigeria squandered over $200 billion in 10 years. That's according to Native. And the story on the foreign scene, by the way, this is for the videos have been on since yesterday. Mudslide killings.
Yes.
Punch is reporting 300 in Syria alone, over 200 of them in Freetown. So floods also causing quite some disaster in Sierra Leone.
The flood in Sierra Leone is quite unfortunate. And what is the cause? There is erosion. There is also deforestation, and consequently, you now find that mudslides from the highland are coming to many of the poor people's home, which is coastal based, and that's why the mudslide buried so many homes and people have become victims. Red Cross says that so far about 200 people have died and over 3,000 persons have been rendered homeless. We need to have a serious lesson to learn from there, because here in Nigeria we have this massive erosion that is challenging us. The erosion weakens the soil, and when these days we are blessed with massive rain, there is that possibility of this landslide.
We have actually done some programs on sea level rise. We've also done on erosion menace in most parts of the southeast of Nigeria and other parts of the country. So the issue is that climate change is really
real. Yes.
It's real, and African countries are worse hit because we're not even prepared in any way for any emergency. And at this point,
part of what you had seen, I'm sorry, just part of what you're saying, say in the Federal Capital Territory here,
yes.
We had cause to raise this on the program, sometime last year, I believe. If some of the hills around, you see the hills are being being carved up, being carved
Yes.
up, being carved up, obviously
Gradually.
for development. That's, you're exposing the environment to more potential mudslides.
Okay.
Bayo, that's the much we can take today. Thank you for being here. See you
Thank you
tomorrow.
for having me.
Okay, so it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. We take a short break now. When we return, we're taking part 2 of our conversation on national unity and stability.
Don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. Really? And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Marriage is a union between a spouse and the spouse of the spouse and the family of the spouse.
You're not only married to your husband, but to his brothers and sisters.
Oh yes, but only where that is sensibly convenient. Don't get it twisted. Marriage is as sweet as you make your home for your partner. He or she is not your slave or a workhorse, there to serve your brothers, sisters, and relatives to her own detriment or his own detriment.
It is foolery of you to have allowed your family members cause catastrophic quagmire of epic proportions in your marriage.
So says Professor John Bull, your rib-cracking comedy in this episode titled Married to Family.
They want to take advantage of my phenomena.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network, Glow Unlimited.
Well, thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria up to this moment. And to kickstart our discussion on the part 2 of the national unity and stability, let's watch this excerpt from yesterday's conversation.
I think we take the question from the angle of trouble with Nigeria at which point? At the point of independence, it was the lack of consensus among the leaders of the uniting of the federating units, if you like. The North didn't hold exactly the same views with the West or the East on whether we should have independence. The trouble with Nigeria during the war is that the war was executed without full consciousness of the fact that this is one people. This is a family fight. You don't do elimination in family fights. And so the blockade and the rest of it, the way the Biafrans were treated was, it's like you want to exterminate vermin. Then the trouble with Nigeria after the war is that the Nigerian armed forces began to lose professionalism by their involvement in politics. And progressively, why we are where we are today is that as at the time the army was handing over to the civilians in 1999, Nigeria had become a criminal enterprise.
You see, the fraud came from privatization. People allocating to themselves oil wells instead of allocating oil wells to institutions that can benefit all Nigerians. So you make one man the owner of oil wells. And if this oil well comes from one region and you give it to somebody from another region, you create problem, instability in the system. So we must look at institutions, we must create institutions to manage all these things for us. You look at electricity now. We gave it to individuals. Now we have no light. we should have created institutions, strong institutions that can manage this electricity for us so that we can have light 24 hours a day.
I believe that Nigeria is not a mistake because God does not make mistakes. Albert Einstein said that God does not play dice with the universe. So Nigeria is not an accident. I think that God is doing a thought experiment of putting such a diverse community of peoples together because we are the symbol of the black race.
What is the NYC like today? You post an NYC person to an organization, he's rejected. So is that the intention? Was it to reject people that we started NYC? We have a federal character principle and there's a federal character commission. What does it do? Every day, people get promoted into positions they don't deserve, and then the explanation is that, oh, he's from a place that is not
represented.
And so federal character became a symbol of mediocrity. But that was not the intention. The intention was to take the best from everywhere. We are no longer doing that.
All right, now those were excerpts from the discussion that we had yesterday. And you can see there were 4 guests. 3 of them were with us here in the Abuja studios. Another one joined us from our Lagos Network Center. Today we also have a set of 4 guests. 3 of them are here with us in the studios. Another one is joining us from another remote location. First, we'd like to welcome at this time Dr. Shem Zagbaye Nuhu, is a former Deputy Governor of Niger State. Excellency Nuhu, pleasure to have you join us on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then we also have with us here in the studios, Hajia Ramatu Dalhatu Musa, she's former President, National Council of Women's Societies. Hajia Ramatu, a pleasure to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, Kirian?
Yes, and we also have Amara Wampa joining us. She is a policy advisor and director at Yaradua Center. It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Amara.
Thank you very much. Please.
And from our Benin studio, we also have Chris Keo. I hope I got the name correctly. Former President, Ijo Youth Council. Thank you for joining us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Karen.
All right, gentlemen and ladies, you are actually welcome to the second stanza of our conversation on national unity and stability, where we've all watched some excerpts from those that were with us here yesterday. And here we are, and the issues have been raised, and we need to look at perspectives to this issue. And we'd like to begin with Dr. Shem Zagbaye Nuhu, former Deputy Governor of Niger State. So what's your own perspective to what is responsible for instability in the country?
We still haven't formed an amalgam because that was the idea by our founding fathers. The Christian did amalgamation of Nigeria. An amalgam means that the combination of 2 different metals forges them into one without any division. In this case, we have not achieved it yet. We are still working on that. And unless we get to that point, we may not derive the benefits that made the founding fathers of Nigeria come up with the idea of an amalgamated nation.
Why aren't we there?
Why aren't we there? Surely because of the different interests we are promoting. We prefer to consider ourselves first instead of the nation. And you can see that all along, even when we talk about federal character, for example, once it gets to the state level, it just stops at that. It doesn't permeate to the local and world levels and probably the different ethnicities that exist there. And the very fact that we have a federal character itself suggests that it keeps reminding us that we are different from each other. And how do you promote amalgamation when at every time you are supposed to identify yourself as coming from one area or the other? when you are so treated as well.
You were talking about amalgamation here. Was there, I'm not taking us back, but was there any formal agreement among Nigerians before the amalgamation?
I've also wondered whether there was, because it appears some people just sat down there somewhere. Was there a referendum? Did Nigerians at that time agree to that, or was it just driven through their throats? I think that is a question that I have not found an answer to up to now.
All right, Dr. Nuhu, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Hajia Ramatu, well, we are discussing the subject of national unity and stability on the heels of widespread agitation in the country, as well as all kinds of threats being issued, plus, of course, the efforts being made by senior citizens and other top government officials to calm nerves that are raw at the moment, as well as ensure that the country continues, as one united and progressive entity. But the fact that these agitations continue, some persons have suggested, will tend to indicate that there is indeed trouble with Nigeria. What is the trouble with Nigeria?
The greatest trouble with Nigeria is one of it is failure to unite men and women. A practical example is what happened when the Constitution amendment in this country, where our legislators missed it out by not passing the affirmative action. Even from creation of man, God proved to us that we cannot do without each other, and that the woman has a right to contribute to the development of this nation. But we have, it's like the women demographic issue is not understood and is not appreciated at all. And secondly, the extreme wide gap between the rich and the poor is what is making it almost impossible for us to integrate well in this country. A situation where, a rich man cannot sacrifice to help the poor person. In fact, the gap is just widening. We talk day in, day out, but nothing seems to be happening as such.
How does affirmative action conduce to national unity and stability?
Thank you very much. Women development in this country cannot be overemphasized. You look at the population of the legislators at both houses, Senate and Reps, the women are very few, and therefore their number cannot be enough to make them the affirmative action to be possible. The men are more in number. But the fact is this, Nigeria has signed a lot of treaties. As far back as this affirmative action is as far back as 1995, after the Beijing platform of action. Why do we enjoy signing treaties and not domesticating them?
Okay, Ajia, let me come in here. Even to substantiate your point, you remember the Aba women riot, which was in the 30s.
Yes.
All sorts of agitation, from women.
Yeah.
But we've also had some women who have made headlines in those days. We have Queen Amina, we've had the Ransom Kuti, the first lady in the southwest of Nigeria.
Margaret
Echo and all of that. So now what we're saying is that are women not being allowed to play their own role to the best of their ability?
No. The playing ground is not conducive. It's not.
But women vote against women most of the time.
No. You look at it that way, but it's not true. It's not true. The women, now look at a situation where political parties will say women should take free ticket. That free ticket, we don't appreciate it too. Because it's just for them to say during primaries, after all, how much did you pay to pick the ticket? Go and rest. So, we just can't do without it. The woman is an intelligent being. Of course.
Yeah, sorry, Ajia. You said the point that you raised an issue. You said that, look, there's trouble with Nigeria, and you then went ahead to say, look, failure to unite men and women, and cited the example of the missed opportunity by the National Assembly with regard to 35% affirmative action. Some persons have argued, look, that there are issues in Nigeria's national unity as well as stability, that's to say the unity and stability question, that you find, religious crisis, mutual suspicion, distrust, and so on and so forth. That's why I was asking, how is the woman factor, how is affirmative action related to this, either as a causative factor or as an ameliorative factor?
Thank you. The affirmative action plays a great role here, because women being mothers, we have that gift from God, from creation, how to manage situations, manage resources. Of course, we should be looked at as the best managers of both human and material resources. Assuming all these issues we have on ground, women were carried along. For example, peace moves, resettlement issues, name them. That would have been a great change. But when men are put all in positions, as the case may be, they go there to think of their own selfish interests. As the wise men have said, when you educate a woman, you educate the nation. But educate a man, you educate an individual. Because it's the self that the man is. So, women should be carried along in all hems of affairs of this.
Thank you very much, Ajia. And actually, as a former National Council, former president of National Council of Women's Societies, me Nigerians, we know where you're coming from. And you want to believe that if women are given more positions of authority in the management of men and resources, that you would have done much better than the men. So some of these instability wouldn't have been there. That's your own submission. Thank you very much. And now, Amara, you are a policy advisor and director of the Advocacy Center, which is a center that has to do with intellectualism, so to speak, because of the kind of events that are organized there. And I've also had experience over the years in understanding the concept called Nigeria, and where we have derailed, and what has led to what, maybe distrust or mistrust or mutual distrust and things like that. So what's your perspective, to our conversation this morning?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it's not the Yaradua Center, it's the Yaradua Foundation. The Yaradua Center is a location, but the foundation is involved in, and the foundation seeks to continue the legacy of Shehu Musa Yaradua, who was known as a bridge builder. So we try to sustain his legacy, working on issues of national unity and strengthening our democracy. And so that falls within the remit of what I do on a daily basis. Now, we've done quite a bit around national unity, especially this year, where we've had a lot of issues with our stability and calls for secession. We recently had, during the 50th anniversary of the secession of Biafra, we had a national conference on Biafra, and we had the acting president who gave a speech there. We had the President General of Ndibo as well, Ohaneze Ndibo, who also gave a very stirring speech. The perspective is, I think I would align with the acting president in his speech at the occasion when he said that Nigerians should exercise their rights to discuss the terms of our existence. And I think that the discussions we're having here, the discussions happening all around Nigeria, all point to that fact. People want to discuss what brings us together, what are the terms under which we should coexist, what is the benefit that we can get from a country like Nigeria. I would say that we need strong institutions that are collective, that are Nigerian in nature. We also need a national identity, something that is more fundamental than, I am an Igbo, I'm a Yoruba, and, Hausa, Fulani. Who are we? So if you ask a Nigerian who they are, it should be much more uniting than something that is sectional or tribal. Nigerians, you know, I also would say that we need a system. I think Hajia, you know, kind of touched on it when she talked about leveling the playing field. I think that we need a system that says to every Nigerian that they can be whatever they dream to be, whatever they want to become, and that there would be no gateways. So you wouldn't be stopped because there were too many Igbos in front of you and we needed to let other people in, or there were too many, we have met the criteria for women, 30%, and that's it, you know, we can't open the door anymore. But that people are allowed to go as far as they can go, as long as they can get there themselves. And the system supports you. If you have a country like that, people would want to be part of that country. And I think that if we build, it will take us time. I think a lot of our problems in Nigeria is that we want things to happen tomorrow, next tomorrow, and you know, and so on. But it will take us time. But we need to spend that time in order to build a country, a collective future for us and our children. And I will say this, that regardless of how this works out, whether, the extreme situation where we all break up into little bits or we remain the same way we are, the challenge is still the same. We still have to define and build a country that lots of people that are different from us will feel welcome and at home and be willing to contribute to it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Wang, but other than the factor of some persons will say the typical Nigerian impatience in terms of wanting quick fixes to otherwise intractable problems, why, in your opinion, have we failed to build the strong institutions that we need? Why have we failed to gel with a national identity, and why haven't we had a level playing field? So why are we continuing to have the mistrust and distrust and the tensions that from time to time rattle the national stability?
Well, there are lots of people who say that the structure is wrong at the moment. And I think that if we have a conversation about what the structure is that allows people or empowers people at lower levels of government to make certain decisions for themselves and to control certain resources. I think that there's a point there. I might be able to support, I'm actually willing to support that opinion that the way the federation is structured at the moment, we can have a fundamental conversation about it. Why is it that, we are not able to evolve beyond, where we are? It's because we're having the wrong conversations. We are trying to fix on top of a foundation that is poorly laid. So if we go back and we kind of have a conversation about the foundation, which is how did we get here? There's a point that you made earlier, which is Nigerians didn't sit around and negotiate an amalgamation. And I think that we can
That was by Dr. Nuhu, by the way. No?
Yes, Dr. Nuhu. But we can go back to have that conversation and negotiate the terms of our union. Yeah. We can go back and discuss what it means, what we want to bring to Nigeria and what we want to keep for ourselves as nation states. What power do we want to give to a federal government, for instance, to manage a collective of us as nations? And what powers do we want to retain for ourselves, decisions that we will have to make for ourselves, and the government doesn't make those decisions for us? I think in every federating entity, that is what usually happens.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, Zawai Nuhu said that was a question that no answer yet. When it comes to the issue of amalgamation, that was what he said. No answer yet. All right. I remember also, Kingsley, that in years past, Chief Ojukwu of the blessed memory called for national conference. Then it was like something that shouldn't be said. Now you're talking about who are we? Yes. Have we discovered ourselves? Are we sure that we can make it together or otherwise? Okay. Now let's get down to Benin, where we have Dr. Chris Ekia. Dr. Chris Ekia, you are the former president of Ijaw Youth Council. There is a reason behind the formation of that council, and if I'm not mistaken, part of it should be to protect the Ijaw people and help them live in a country where we have a diversified ethnicity. Now, considering all perspectives that have been raised in this conversation, what's your own perspective with respect to disunity, distrust, and what have you in the country?
All right, thank you and good morning to all of you over there. Currently, I'm the convener of the Integration Summit Group Nigeria. As the former president of the Joy Youth Council, I moved over and above that to begin to look at national integration. I even led a regional struggle for the Ijaw people. And the reason for that was clear. The Ijaws, even pre-independence, knew about what we're facing today. We knew about the fears of the minority, the fears of those that may not have voices, when the country begin to run in auto. And we're here now. Unfortunately, from the Integration Summit Group angle, as young people that were mobilizing across Nigeria, we have identified 3 stratas of issues that Nigeria must deal with, otherwise we'll continue to have this backlash and struggles for our identity. The first and major fundamental is governance and governance structures. People in government, institutions of government, they themselves, when I'm saying institution of government, I'm talking about the presidency, the military, the academia, those institutions of government that should enforce patriotism in citizens have gone to sleep with it. In fact, they themselves are promoting a kind of pariah status, disintegrated country in their body language, in the way the governance is monitored. And the citizens are beginning to think, truly, do we have a country where we should give our best and be more patriotic? So the product is that even in the classroom, you have people already divided along lines of religion, which is another strong factor. People, rather than do governance, people play religion in government. And it tends to divide people, polarize the country into 2 major divides, forgetting that there are other religions in the country that can live peacefully. The other one is the ethnicity. Now, when governance structure begins to fail, people will begin to think that because this man is not my brother from my region, I should not give him a chance to exist in a system. So if you go to the institutions of government, even the international oil companies, even the very parastatals of government, you find out that if a man, for instance, is the director of a place and is an Ijaw man, he will quickly begin to mobilize the Ijaw people around to fill in the spaces available. If he was a Hausa Fulani man, he would do the same thing. If he was an Igbo man, he would do the same thing. I'm going to check what I'm saying now is happening now, right now. And we're talking about national integration. Now, I also listened when they talked about federal character, the NYC, and all those stuff. Really, there is nothing wrong with our constitution, even as it is, if 50% of what is written there can be implemented stricto sensu. But the problem is we play regionalism with it, we play politics with it, and so we don't see the benefits of what we have. We're talking about conferences, and we need to go back and check whether we were asked to stay together. We can't check that because Jonathan called a national conference. Some people backed out of it. Some went, and then certain solutions have been proffered. Right now, nobody's even looking at what is written there because, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a pan-Nigerian thing. PANDEF came up with solutions. Different organizations have talked about what we must do. But you know how we see it as a country? You know how government sees it? These are noise makers from different sectors. So the National Assembly, therefore, which is duly constituted to also deal with our national issue, it is self-divided along lines of north, south, majority, minority, Christian, Muslim. So we have a country that is full or filled with confusion based on governance and governance structure. So until government begin to look at it more seriously and deal with the issue of merit rather than all these other issues of regionalism, then we will continue to have people agitating about being afraid of being excluded from our nationality. What we are doing at the Integration Summit Group is clear. We have realized that the current leadership structure and those of older generations somewhere created a gap that needs to be filled. So we're targeting young people and going to begin to drive a process of nationalism, broad nationalism, and patriotism. I'm talking about people between age 18 and probably 40, so that in the next generation, we'll have people who are more committed to country than self. Because we have been caught in the web where majority of the people of this climate think about self, think about their state and their local government and then their immediate family at the expense of country. They think about their religion at the expense of country. And that's why you can find people who rise and then clandestinely try to manipulate our constitution so as to achieve a goal. And all this is why you see all these agitations. If government gets it right, citizens will not agitate. Look at the Second Republic. We had political parties. The agitation was not this strong. People did, because true federalism was practiced. Government must look into the issue of true federalism, the issue of federal character, the issue of how things are done. I heard one of the speakers talking about somebody in yesterday's program, somebody taking oil block from one region and giving to another in another region to the exclusion of the person who has oil block. It creates bad blood. So government must review how it implements its policy, because the biggest problem is governance and governance structure. And the backlash of what we're seeing is a backlash from that misapplication of governance. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Ikiyot, thank you very much. I mean, the point you've raised, you've uncalled it again by way of repetition, by way of by reiteration on governance and governance structures. But why, from your perspective, has it been somewhat challenging in recent decades for the Nigerians to think pan-Nigeria, to jettison whatever other affiliations or identities that may have, religion, ethnicity, or otherwise, and then focus on that which is national, that would therefore be a boon to the nation's unity and stability? Why have we not been able to get that to jail, which is why we are discussing this at the moment?
You know, you can't put something on nothing and expect it to stand. There was a lacuna created by the military, as it were, where it became, the country was skewed towards a unitary system kind of governance, where the head of state has all the powers and all the monies were being looted. And then the product of the military gave birth to the current political class, who are in the same vein playing some kind of military democracy in this democratic setting. So we have not really thrown the gap off of the kind of handover that we experienced. It will take some time. However, like I said, until history is not been taught in school, civics is gone. Until certain remodeling of the younger generations begin to take place over a period, we will rather open the gaps than close it. As convener of the Integration Summit Group, we have been talking to people. We have had conferences across the country. Do you know what? People in places of authority have not bothered to attend. We invite them, but never bothered to attend, because it wasn't about, there was not going to be any economic gains. So people are now driven by their greed than their patriotism. So we see Ijo, we see Hausa Fulani, we see Middle Beltons, we see Biafra. It is not driven by the desire of the people to break away. It is because people now feel that they have been excluded from a common patrimony by a selected privileged few who always find themselves in governance. And I can tell you, there is nobody new in government today. Since I've been a boy, the same people have recycled themselves. And it's like that because they have not had the confidence to transfer power. And they're doing that, and they're recycling the same thing in a different way and getting the same result. So I think that for Nigerians to be more patriotic to country, the systems of governance must change. Government must begin to focus its policy to providing for the common citizens. Laws and policy must be to protect the common citizens. What we have now is that the laws protect the rich. If you want a bank loan as a common man, a farmer or a trader, you won't get. But if a multi-billionaire businessman whose friend is a politician that makes the policy in the central bank wants a bank loan or a particular bank, they sit in a coffee bar, they fix the papers, they get it done. And the money is gone, and then they write it as bad loan, billions of naira. Someone sits somewhere. A week ago, I wrote on my Facebook wall, I said, if all this money that is being attributed has been stolen by Desani is an Ijaw man from my place, is real, then it is indeed primitive accumulation, and she's a disappointment to our people. While somewhere in support, a few couple of Ijaw people wrote on the wall to say, why will you and Ijaw man say that? And I said, this is not about being Ijaw. Crude oil does not have tribe. If this money was taken by my sister, it was wrong. Now, what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter where anybody comes from. If we are Nigerians, let us talk about Nigeria first before we begin to think who we are. Otherwise, when this catastrophe lands on the table, it will swallow everybody. Nobody will be spared. No tribe will be spared. The crisis we're having will not know tribe, color, or even gender, as the lady about gender was talking. It will know gender. Because whether it's male or female, we need to start doing things appropriately. And that's why even now when we went to, the ROIs talked about evicting Igbos, the Integration Summit Group is saying we're going to ROI House again in October to insist on integration of Nigeria. And we're going to get there to do that. We are committed, and we have numbers increasing by the day of young people who believe in Nigeria. And I think there are more people committed to Nigeria than those ones calling for a breakaway. However, the slogan restructuring is not to say that Nigeria is divided. Restructuring can be in terms of how governance is run, which I talked about governance structure, can be in terms of how all those fundamentals that kept Nigeria as a great country will be reviewed and re-implemented so that we can move on. Until that is done, what you are raising about why are people no longer committed, there won't be. They have to provide their own water, their own road, their own drainage, their own electricity. They have to find jobs for themselves because there's no job. So why would they bother about a country that does not provide for them? So the country must begin to look at that direction. And when people begin to see country responsible for citizens, citizens will be responding back to country. What we have now are small countries living in a country. Every individual seems to be a country, providing his own light, his own security, his own road, his own school. It's complicated.
Thank you once again, Dr. Ekeo, for that explicit analysis, of the situation from his own perspective. And I return to you here in Abuja, Dr. Zabai. Dr. Zabai, he raised a key number, key issues: remodeling of the younger generation of Nigerians, recycling of people in power for as long as 40 years. And of course, the issue Dr. Tony Redia raised yesterday in the conversation, where he said that some NYSC members are rejected. So what kind of a nation are we talking about here?
Well, I would think that most of us have lost focus on where we should take Nigeria to. As I said earlier, we are still in the formative stage, because we haven't yet arrived at an amalgamated country. And if we have to do that, then these type of issues we've raised should not be seen to be, it should not be at the fore. For example, coppers being rejected. Why are they rejected? Is it because there isn't anything for them to do? I don't believe so, because Nigeria is still developing, and there are many challenges. Some states have said, okay, let's face education. So every copper that is posted to the state will be deployed to the classroom. And why not? There's a need for teachers at all levels, and I doubt whether there will ever be a time in the nearest future where I would say we have enough teachers, and coppers, therefore, will not be needed. I wonder what might have happened in that area. We are looking forward to having our youth take over from us. Are they undergoing any tutelage? Are we trying to hand over to them and mentor them? And part of mentoring is to sit back and watch them manage the country. And where we feel they are doing well, we encourage them, we commend them. Where they are not, we also then advise them accordingly.
I'm wondering, Dr. Noho, just before I come to the other guests with us here in the studios, a number of sound bites, let's put it that way, have issued from today's conversation already. A moment ago, you said we've lost focus of where we want to take Nigeria to. And then the point has also been made by another guest here. It says, look, Nigerians tend to think of self first before the nation. Yesterday, the role, what was described as the invidious role of the elite class and the fate of the nation, now being framed as the issue of national unity and stability, is one that needs to be interrogated. Why is it that the elite class would appear, whether political, bureaucratic, business, intelligentsia, or otherwise, religious, why is it that we have not been able to have, shall we say, an elite consensus on where we want to take Nigeria to, rather than having the self first before the nation, and then the kind of symptomatic reactions we are now getting from, shall we say, the underclass?
Mm-hmm. Well, that is the unfortunate part of what we are going through in Nigeria today, that we are very selfish, and we look inwards. We don't consider the common good of Nigerians. It's very unfortunate. Why is it so? Is it our history? Is it because we claim we are religious while we are not? Because Nigerians are very religious, but are they God-fearing? And anyone that is God-fearing will always love his neighbor as he loves himself. It's not the other way around, where you love yourself and don't care about your neighbor. And that is what is happening if one is put in charge of, or is put in charge of any organization. Is he responsible to the people that put him there, or is he trying to enrich himself first and foremost? And when that happens, it drives us to that position where we see greed at the fore. And you want to be satisfied first before you start thinking of sharing the crumbs with other people that are around you. That is not helping us as a nation, and that is promoting even the divisions that we are seeing today. I recall that while we were growing up, our teachers, those were the people we are looking up to, those of us that grew up in the village. They were part of the community, and they were not seen as oppressors. Instead, they were building the community. Today, you find those of us that are elites, most of us would prefer to invest in ourselves, promote ourselves, and the way we flout our riches make those that we are supposed to be managing so envious, and we lose respect. Very difficult to provide leadership under such an environment, because everyone wants a leader that is selfless and would demonstrate to him that he has his interests at heart.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to come to Abuja on because Abuja has made us to know that women are not allowed to play a key role, and that is part of the problem we're having, especially in governance. But Abuja, you also know that women have also been found wanting in several areas. For instance, in embezzlement and mismanagement of organizations in the past, especially if you talk about the practice of democracy from 1999 till date. We have had some women who have not really done well in public offices. In that connection, what would you say, because you are so particular about the fact that people are not giving the same opportunity as men, but those who have been given opportunity, some didn't do well at all. So in that connection, what have you got to say?
Thank you very much. You can say that because women are not known for doing negative things. The number of women that have been found wanting per se is very negligible compared to men. When you talk of women who have embezzled, have you also talked of those who have brought this country out of shame, this nation? The likes of Okonjo-Iweala, who got us world debt relief. Nobody celebrated her because she was a woman. If it were to be a man, till tomorrow the bell would have been ringing. Well, we are not encouraging any woman to embezzle. It's very wrong. Man or woman, there's no difference. So the few that have been found wanting, have you ever had any result of the findings that it is true? If it is true, no woman will support such a woman. She's a Nigerian, and she should be called to book, as the case may be, if found wanting. So why it puzzles our minds when men so much hammer on one or two women that have gone wrong, and then hundreds of and thousands of the men should be free. Is the country meant for men alone? The nation is for both men and women. And that is the more reason why the system doesn't want to carry women along, because we are too blunt.
But how can women presently, you know, assist Nigeria the way it is to achieve stability?
Of course, we will assist if you give us the chance. Like Dr. Zagbai did mention, that this NYC that are rejected should not be rejected, they should be sent to the classroom. That is misplacement of priority. Because I'm a graduate and I didn't read education to know how to teach, it's wrong for me to go to the class. Sir, with due respect, they should be given some 2-3 weeks orientation to make them become somehow teachers, because they can't just be teachers. In some years past.
Let me cut in here. So the context in which Dr. Tony Radia cited the NYC example was just merely illustrative of the larger malaise that he was illustrating, and the larger malaise that he was adumbrating on when we had a discussion yesterday. Yeah. What he said, he took that along also with the federal character issue that said, look, his thesis was on that issue, we do not obey the spirit, we do not follow the spirit of any law, of any piece of legislation, or for that matter, the Constitution. That sometimes we tend to focus more on the letter to the disadvantage of the spirit that governs that. So that was merely illustrated, but we'll come back to you as well as the other guests after we return from this short break.
Okay.
You are still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, and our guests are still here in the studio as we are looking at Nigeria's stability. But before we move on with the conversation, let us tell you what other Nigerians are saying, because they are beginning to react to this conversation. First, I have here Clifford Agwegosi. He says, has zoning come to be a permanent feature in our polity? When are we going to mature and relegate zoning to mediocrity?
No, to meritocracy.
To meritocracy, rather.
That's right. All right. So, Kira, let's also take this one from Festus Akimboyewa. Those in position of authority in Nigeria must urgently address many inter-ethnic tensions and promote dialogue across Nigeria.
And Mohammed said, we have come this far, and I think referendum is due to take a new project in Nigeria. The last amalgamation has failed us.
And then we have this from Emmanuel Owari Nino. It says, a situation where political parties are not in unity, how does that nation go forward? You know, political differences need to be reserved for stability to happen.
Now, Osiwe Ibuagui, that woman is the definition why Nigeria is disunited, but this is not very clear. That's not very clear. So let's move to Ibrahim Tudu. The widening gap between speeches and actions, and between policy and implementation, and between leadership and responsibility are the causes of failure.
Now, Emmanuel George tweets, government is a trust, and officers are trustees, both created for the benefit of the people. Now, if the trust is lost, trouble rises.
All right, and Osiwe, again, why we don't have national identity? All ethnic companions are existing it. Nigeria is a joke.
Ashafa Sambo twists. Every part of the country needs every other part of the country. We need each other if we want a prosperous Nigeria.
And Del Jackson Solomon, addressing key issues of leadership, corruption, unity, and peaceful coexistence in a united Nigeria at this time is a must for our unity.
Emmanuel George tweets, those who will give up essential liberty to buy temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. I take that again. Emmanuel George, those who will give up essential liberty to buy temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. All right, now these are some of the tweets that we are taking in the meantime. Again, part of the issue that was raised yesterday, so it could be found there in the tweets, that namely Nigerians would tend to talk more about the challenges, about the issues, rather than having positive action to remedy whatever the observed situation is. But before we come to that, I'd like to ask again the question that I posed to Dr. Zabaye a moment ago. That namely, my question is going to Amara Nwakba now. The elite factor, the failure of the elite class, if you like, as a factor in Nigeria's unity and stability question. Have we sufficiently addressed that? As Nigeria's elite class behaved selflessly, and what can they do to ensure that, listen, this country remains united or stays united, is stable and progressive? When do we get off the point, as some persons have indicated, of greed, and then focus on that which is patriotic and nationalistic?
Well, for me, I'll say the elite class haven't really done very well, but I would also say that in the generality of Nigerians, it's been a synergy between the elite and the grassroots in terms of how we have or where we find ourselves today. I don't think that the elite are only the ones to blame. I think they've been enabled and supported by Nigerians in the grassroots. And I think that that is a situation that has brought us into this negative spiral, into this retrogressive cycle that we found ourselves. What we have as a system is an extractive one. And so we take oil, mostly, we sell it, and then we distribute or we allocate to ourselves. And that's how we run the country. Whereas most countries will build themselves from the ground up. So they will collectively build their wealth, and then they would, share to those who do not have. And I think that what we need to do, and I think this is something that the responsibility will start from the grassroots, but also the elite need to take responsibility for that too as well, is we need a federation, a system that adds value, not extractive, not something that we're always mining from the ground. The oil is depleting every time we take it. We mine it, and at some point it will run out. We need a system that is based on adding value. People bring together, contribute to the center. We are contributing to Nigeria rather than taking away from it. What we do at the moment, and I think the elite only just take a lion's share of it, but what we do at the moment is we take and keep taking from Nigeria. It's not sustainable. But it's not, like you said, primarily the responsibility of the elite. The grassroots have been enablers as part of this process, and we need to stop enabling benefit capture by the elite.
I was just going to say this, Kyria, before we return to Lagos Network Studios, and again, this is part of the question I'm asking Amara. 40 years ago, if you asked me where Dubai was on the world atlas, I had no idea. I'm sure any one of us who had an idea where Dubai was.
Desert.
All right, fine. So, with the greatest respect to the UAE, is it the grassroots that has built Dubai that the Nigerian elite class is running to? My question is to you.
Well, no, it's definitely not. I think that people, leadership is about creating opportunities for people, to do extraordinary things. But where the elites have created an enabling environment, people have stepped in and become entrepreneurs and innovators. It's not the elite that put the blocks together. They're not the ones that fix the taps, the plumbing, the electricity, and so on. They're not the ones that have made themselves available in schools, become teachers, and so, running the civil service, passing files. They're not the break upon break of the system. They have been supported by people who buy into a vision. So whereas the responsibility of the elite is to define a goal, a collective vision that unites us, that we all aspire to, it is also our responsibility to buy into it, to follow it, and to contribute to it. And sometimes that takes sacrifice. So I think that whereas Nigerians would like to lay responsibility on the doorstep of the other person, I think for Nigeria to work, we have to take responsibility for our part in the problem. Everyone has to take responsibility for it. But also we have to take responsibility for what we have to contribute to the solution.
But now, before we go to Benin, let me ask you this. No, this issue is about governance.
Yes.
It's about selfishness of people in government.
Yeah.
It's about lack of nationhood on somebody who is holding a public office, right? And when we talk about politics, is that who gets what, when, and how, and these things come from institutions, right, or agencies of government, and the elite occupy these positions. It depends on the policy that comes from the elite of what determines what trickles down to the grassroots. So we are talking about the Nigerians in government. Over the years, they have not stopped being selfish from the First Republic, right? So, are we now looking at, should we not be looking at restructuring the country? Is it going to be, help us? Because all these issues arose from bad governance. Yes. There are no two ways about it. So, what's your take on that?
Well, first I need to say that, we've allowed the elite to occupy these positions. I mean, in Kenya, a 23-year-old guy who didn't have money got elected. I think we give them our mandate. We outsource our mandate to them all the time. And no matter how many times we complain, we still go back and give it to them. I don't know how we compromise, but we do it. And even the people that help them enforce, whether they rig the elections or anything, or whatever it is that they do to sustain themselves, they are not doing it by their own hand. There are people who are enabling that, and they are part of the grassroots as well. They are not as elite as those people. But if we talk about selfishness and greed and institutions and restructuring, I think it starts with an ideal, a vision. People are motivated by something that is imaginary and visionary, beyond just the money. And I think we need to begin to define for ourselves things that motivate us as Nigerians that are not just money. Legacy, for instance, things that are intangible, that perpetuate our name and our story for time, immemorial. I think there are lots of Nigerians who are dead today and we don't remember. And there are some that we continue to tell their story from generation to generation. And I think that we need to start defining reward, incentives for Nigerians who do things for us collectively. That means that 3,000 years from now, 4,000 years from now, people will still learn about them and still be able to remember that they lived.
Again, that's the role of the elite class, Mr. Wankpa. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Let's return to Dr. Chris Akiyo in our Benin Network Center. Dr. Akiyo, still on the issue of the elite class. Now, some persons believe, in terms of the causative factors of the tensions we're having with our national unity and stability, that persons do not appear to believe sufficiently in the Nigerian project, which is why they behave the way they do, loot whatever they want to loot, get greedy the way you want to be greedy, have no focus, as Dr. Zagbaye also indicated, of where the country wants to go to. And then, ultimately, we begin to seek solutions outside. Nigerians are more interested in what happens outside the country in terms of, say, oh, that's where to go, that's where to have a safe haven, rather than building a safe haven here and attracting people to us. For you to have a safe haven, you must be, of course, to an extent, united and then be stable. What do we need to do to get this right?
Thank you. First, if you look at the First Republic and the Second Republic, you will see that they were even more concerned about issues that would regional building. As the First Republic tend to create regional power structures that created, everybody knew what they could do, they knew their capacity, and then they pulled to the center. And then the Second Republic tried to build that. Even the military era before the Second Republic, the kind of national infrastructure they were building were more nationalistic. Railways, trunk in national roads, the National Petroleum Corporation, the fertilizer companies, the steel industries. They were national assets that could cause people to pull to the center. We had relatives moving from Port Harcourt to Kaduna Refinery. We had people moving from Sokoto to Ajokuta Steel or to DSC Alaja. We had people going across. The police force itself was created such that there were this tendency to move people around the country so you get to understand your country. Today, it's all different. You can find a man who joined the police force in Enugu and spent his 30 years around Enugu and Imo State in the police force, or who joined in Kaduna and never left Kaduna and Nasarawa State, or at best Zamfara State. Now, that idea of federal character or national integration is being eroded by the compromise that policymakers have made. I listened to Amara talk about the masses. Where there are no options, the only option is the option available. The masses can't do anything. You want to go to an election, you know that though you are voting, your vote is just ceremonial, because the person that the policymakers want to win will win anyway, anyhow, and the courts will help them certify that winner. The process is from top to bottom, designed for someone upstairs to skew everything to work in his or her favor once you can find your way upstairs. Now, unless and otherwise, that person upstairs is patriotic enough to percolate and allow nationalism play its role, he will also compromise himself by bringing people around him to drive the process. And those people that you bring around you tend to see you as a man who have done them favor. So they play mediocrity and psychophancy around you and confuse you even the more. So what I think we need to get right is that we need to begin to look at those small nitty-gritty items that have been raised up by different sections as their worries. And the Institute of Policy, for instance, and Strategic Study can look at that. The National Assembly can look at that and altruistically design certain laws or acts that can help government drive a process that is for all Nigerians. So these agitations you're hearing from every sector is just a further confirmation of what the Ijoy Youth Council raised in 1998. We saw it early in the day, that the way government is being run, certain persons will be alienated in due course because they are not captured in any way. After the Civil War, when Gowon said, no victor, no vanquish, it took him 3 months to rehabilitate the Igbos. It took him 3 months to reintegrate even those who went to Biafra back into the Nigerian military. It took him 3 months to start the process, and then it took him 6 months to start rebuilding. Just look at the Northeast, to even reintegrate, IDPs. The people who have to do the job themselves are stealing money, are cutting grasses, are even raping the people, because we're not commitment to nationhood anymore. And that is the fundamental. All of us, including NTA, must begin to support processes that talk about national integration. Anybody who is championing that cause of national integration must be supported by the institutions of government and the citizens. And I believe that more Nigerians prefer Nigeria as Nigeria. And I'm an advocate that says Nigeria is better as Nigeria than any section of Nigeria. And let me say this by capping it up with simple food that we eat, food. The broom that is used to sweep the entire Nigerian homes, apart from synthetic broom, comes from the east. Palm fronds from the east, majorly. The palm oil that's on every home that makes the soup comes from the east, majorly. The millet, the maize, the rice that is feeding all homes in the south, that you use for cornflakes, for semolina, and all that, comes from the north and the northeast. The onion that you have to spice all the foods that we eat come from the north. So if you begin to look at it, the meat on the table, the chicken, everybody, somehow, God designed this country that we should complement one another. So even the oil that is being used to build the infrastructure comes from the Niger Delta. You can find out that the solid minerals are all littered everywhere, then they've gone to sleep because, you know what? People think that it's my turn, I need to empower myself, and then I need to go to abroad to find comfort. And that's why Dubai is built. Really, Dubai is built by monies from other people who have stolen money and moved in there. And the people there have sat down and said, look, we invest with our small oil money and encouraged us to invest in our property. Nigeria must go and begin to look at what Dubai did to succeed. We have the capacity. We have the human resources. If you go internationally, Nigerians are doing exceedingly well. We don't have one university, Ivory University, that can compete with anyone around the country, around the world. And we are building more every day. It makes a mockery of our education. The other day, some private university churned out 260-something first-class graduates. What
Are they geniuses? What have they designed? We have engineering faculties that cannot design anything apart from draw. We have agricultural engineers who cannot design anything apart from draw. I'm not seeing genetically modified products. I'm not seeing advanced. So our education system is suffering, the health sector is suffering, the security system is suffering. So citizens have now returned to themselves and said, I must find a way to stay alive. And you can't blame the masses who stay home, really cannot take them home. You can't take them home. So their thought processes, if I want to quote Fayoshe, is to say that it's now skewed towards the stomach infrastructure or Bele Kingdom. So their ability to think really, truly freely is tied to the principal who provides the lifeline. And this principal are those who are in government perpetually since the First Republic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ekio. You just hit it, on the head. We'll talk about people who don't believe in Nigeria as a nation. They don't buy made in Nigeria products. They don't believe in the Nigerian universities because their children are all abroad going to school. These are the elites. These are people in the positions of authority. Ajia, as your final thought on this matter, away from from the gender issue, because women have been contributing to national development, what do you think Nigeria should do at this moment in time?
Nigeria should we should wake up from our slumber and stop having a deceitful governance. That is just it. This deceitful governance leads to wrong structure, wrong allocation of resources, ill use of everything we have. Just spiritual poverty is what makes people to accumulate primitively. There are different kinds of poverty, I always say it. When we talk of, people embezzling, we think of only money. There are so many things that go wrong that are worse than money. Now, we need to have a dialogue. Dialogue is the only answer here. If you look at the Oxfam report,
I will not be talking and talking.
We have been talking, but nothing has come out of it. But it's not too late. We cannot just be weak now that the situation is, on our faces. It's getting out of hand. So it's never too late. Now, what I want to say practically is the fact that charity begins at home. We must have a rethink. We must have change of heart. We must think Nigeria, act Nigeria. Even when we are working, we should work Nigeria.
All right.
I want to see a Nigeria where a northerner will be a special advisor to a governor in the south, or a southern person will be a commissioner in any northern state. If a Nigerian can win election in other parts of the world, if Nigerians can win election in America and other parts of the world, why can't we integrate?
It happened in the past, Hajia. It happened in the past. I mean, we had people from different parts of the country, who won elections in locations other than their states of origin, as we say. And persons have also kicked against the whole idea, the national ID. So you have your national identity. Plus the point you made, Kyria, just hold on a second, please. There's the point you made about spiritual poverty and the nexus that it has with Bele Kingdom, as advocated by Dr. Chris Ekio. But one point, because we are pressed now for time. My question goes first to Dr. Zagbaye. The guest on the program yesterday indicated, and I threw that in a moment ago. Look, we talk about the problem, we talk about the issues, and yet if you have all kinds of shelves that are full of recommendations and proposals of what to do. The latest, of course, being the 600 odd recommendations or so of the national conference that took place in 2014. So what do we need to do? Where do we need to go to immediately pick up, not that we're looking for quick fixes, pick up some of the solutions to the challenges that face us with regard to our national unity and stability?
Well, it is very clear from what you've said, and every Nigerian does appreciate that we have come up with several recommendations which may be on the shelves. Why don't we pick them up and start implementing them? And where there are errors, we try and fix them. Right now, we are focusing on agriculture, I think that is a mantra. And fertilizer is being made available. Are we monitoring to find out whether the farmers are really accessing and at the right price? And how is it impacting in the field right now? If we're not making it well, if we're not doing well, how are we going to rectify that before the next planting season? Because agriculture seems to be an area where we must focus on, make sure we feed ourselves, raise enough to even export.
All right. Amara, your final thoughts, please.
Well, I think Nigeria needs leadership. I wanted to respond to what you said earlier about the elite, and I think Akiyo also raised it as well. I think, you know, what you need to change things is actually leadership, and it doesn't have to come from the elite class. It can come from any class of people. I think it's just someone who is able to define something that people would follow, and define a dream that people, or a vision that people can follow. I think we need that. We need to strengthen our education from basic education. All of these dreams that we are talking about, if we are failing people at primary school level, if we have one of the worst basic education systems in the world, we are not going to be able to build a future for ourselves, because people will just not know enough. And you know, if the basic education is poor, secondary education, you can't save them. By the time they get to university, and you're talking about now making them teachers, a lot of them don't know what they're teaching anyway. They don't have what it takes to teach your kids, and certainly wouldn't want some of them to be teaching my kids. So we would need to strengthen our education too as well. And you know, we need to return back to teaching our history in schools. I think we need to teach our own history, not European history, not American history, our own history, because that builds.
That's been restored. That's been restored in the curriculum.
You have to start it there. It has been restored, actually. You have to stop it there because I want some time. We'll find out thoughts in just some seconds.
Well, I look forward to a time when I will be celebrating Nigeria that is making progress, Nigeria I am proud of, Nigeria my children will bless that I helped to build.
Thank you. Thank you there. Thank you indeed there. Gentlemen and lady, we are glad having you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. And at this point, I'd like to first of all thank Dr. Shem Zabwai Nuhu, former Deputy Governor of Niger State. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. And Ajia Ramatu Dahatu Musa, former President, National Council of Women Societies. Thank you, Madam, for sharing your thoughts this morning.
You're welcome.
And of course, Amara Wamba, Policy Advisor and Director, Eradua Center, or Eradua Foundation, rather. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
And finally, we would like to thank Dr. Chris Ekeo, former President, Ijaw Youth Council. Thank you indeed for your insight this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. All right, sports is next on the program. Stay with us.